design thinking can be applied in many different ways, and there are a lot of great books on it now. But the process I'm going to suggest is sort of how we at LSB have applied it to the world of behavioral marketing. And the first step is really coming up with a hunch for the behavior that will most affect your consumer and grow your top line, the single behavior and what triggers it. This is a hunch, a hypothesis, and then of course the rest of the steps are digging into whether that hunch is correct, getting some insights on it, and ultimately trying to come up with that creative leap, the big idea, the algorithm that you can use to actually trigger it. The thing about step one is when you figure out what that behavioral objective is, it has to be quite specific. It's not something like you get consumers to buy more or increase share. It's something more specific like stop using ATM machines and use your debit card for everything, or stop using your landline and making all your personal phone calls on a mobile phone. It has to be a very specific behavior, and then your search for what triggers it. So step one is really sorting out that hunch of what single thing you could do, that behavior that you could, if you could trigger it, would most grow your top line. Step two is then really digging into all the possible research that would give you clues about whether that hunch is correct or what the trigger might be. It's looking over existing data you have. It's finding new data, mining behavioral data online, connecting dots, search, landing page, things of that sort. But it's also trying new methods of research, perhaps your competitors are not, experimenting with research and insights, because of course if you do just what your competitors are doing, you are only finding out what your competitor knows. What you really want are insights no one else has found out. Step three is then taking that data and looking for the patterns. Are there patterns of what trigger, patterns of what precedes a purchase decision? You're really trying to, in the same way you try to find new data, new insights, you're trying to mix and match the data for new insights. Look for correlations. Maybe you visualize the data, you graph it or make pictorials of it in a certain way so you can find things you've never found before. Step four then is really trying to create that rule of thumb, identify that rule of thumb that does trigger the behavior you seek. For Amazon, it was they discovered there was a connection between if I liked mysteries before, I'm going to like them again, and they could figure out that algorithm. So what is that rule of thumb that you can then automate and with technology create and trigger that behavior again and again and again? Step five is then setting up your whole organization to optimize that behavior, making sure you have the folks triggered, aligned behind the trigger. You have the right software, everybody has the right job descriptions and roles and responsibilities and performance standards. And then of course step six is all that persuasion technology to make sure the email says just the right thing in the subject line, the website says all the right things, that you have defined and tracked all the steps your consumer takes to that trigger point, so you're guiding them the whole way. How do you jumpstart awareness perhaps with PR or advertising to get them to the website, to get the data on them, all those kinds of things. So 6 very quick steps, and of course we have a lot more on our website if you want a white paper on this. But it really is a way to, again, organize all these disparate parts in a way that makes sense in a world where we have the coming of age of all this behavioral data and behavioral marketing, but yet we still have to find a way to, from it, take a creative leap. So between steps 3 and 4, where you sort of assess the research and find that trigger, and step 4, when you find that rule of thumb, you're not going to get any proof of the idea, but this is where you brainstorm and have that creative leap, much as Amazon did. It's sort of like the marriage between science and data and artistry.